After turning 70, life is no longer about racing through careers or the pressure of conquering new heights. It's a time to pause, reflect on the journey you've traveled, and embrace the values you've built throughout your life. Every wrinkle, every step is a story, a lesson that only time and experience can teach. However, alongside this tranquility come new challenges. Health may not be what it once was, and sometimes the companions who shared your joys and sorrows are now cherished memories. Have you ever wondered, what have I truly achieved? And what have I lost after all these years? Join us as we explore these questions in this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay updated with meaningful content that inspires joy, purpose, and deep insights for your life journey. 1. What you gain. Reaching 70 opens a new chapter in your life. One where wisdom is the refined product of years lived through highs, losses, and a world of experiences. By this age, wisdom isn't just about knowledge, but rather a deeper understanding of life itself. As Socrates famously said, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. At this point, you start to recognize that wisdom doesn't come from piling up information, but from a deep humility toward the vastness of life. Being able to acknowledge your own limitations and empathize with the world around you. Moreover, life after 70 grants you a richer perspective. Earlier in life, there might have been a constant rush toward work, career goals, and the pursuit of recognition. But now, you begin to see the true value in the simple yet precious moments. Sharing a cup of coffee with an old friend, the laughter of grandchildren, or simply a quiet moment in the outdoors. All of these bring a sense of peace and calm that's often hard to find in youth. This perspective helps you appreciate the present and gives you the ability to let go of what no longer serves you, creating room for a serene acceptance of reality. Most importantly, turning 70 offers a newfound freedom, a type of freedom you can only experience once the pressures and expectations of life have lifted. This isn't about material freedom or social status. It's about mental and spiritual liberation. No longer is there a need to prove yourself or chase distant dreams. Instead, you're free to live for yourself, enjoy every moment, and pursue the passions and interests that perhaps were overlooked in your younger years. This freedom enables you to live more authentically, not for others, but for your own happiness. And that is the greatest gift life offers after all these years. 2. What you lose. Crossing into your 70s also means confronting some unavoidable losses, with health being one of the most prominent. Your body, which once had the strength to handle just about anything, may not react as quickly or as strongly as it did before. Age-related issues, whether it's blood pressure, heart health, or joint pain, quietly chip away at physical strength. It becomes clear that while the spirit remains strong, the body has begun to tire, unable to keep up with the demands of everyday life. Alongside declining health is the gradual loss of physical capability. Activities that were once second nature, like climbing stairs, driving, or even going for long walks, may now take a bit more effort. Feeling powerless when your body doesn't respond the way you want can be a source of frustration. But it's also a reminder to embrace a slower pace and seek balance in what you do. One of the biggest challenges is the loss of independence. Once the steady hand of the family, you might now find yourself needing support from others, whether it's your children or professional caregivers. This can be the hardest loss to bear, as it signifies not having full control over your life like you used to, but rather than fighting against it. It's a chance to learn acceptance and recognize that depending on others is a natural part of the cycle of life, allowing you to gradually let go and lean on the love and support that surrounds you. 3. What really matters after 70? When the shine of a career or the chase for success starts to fade, the real treasures often lie in the people who surround us. Humans aren't meant to live alone, and at this stage of life, family and friends become anchors, sources of comfort and emotional support. Heartfelt conversations, warm family meals, these don't just bring joy. They help you appreciate the deeper value of connection. Beyond wealth and personal achievements. It's these bonds with loved ones that form the foundation of happiness in old age. It's the love, the sharing, and the moments spent with children, grandchildren, and friends that bring meaning to life. When health isn't what it used to be, the presence of those we love is the best medicine, offering a sense of belonging and reassurance that you are not alone. Let's take a moment to hear the story of John Parker, a once successful man who, at 75, found himself confronting a loneliness he never anticipated. John Parker was a prominent businessman in New York. By his 30s, he had built a successful construction company that managed large projects all across the United States. The demands of his career consumed him, and he became a man constantly swept up in the fast-paced world of business. He would often tell his wife, "Mary, everything I'm doing is for the family, to give you and the kids a better life." But the truth was, John was hardly ever home. Urgent meetings, high-stakes projects, and client dinners kept him away from key family moments. When his eldest daughter, Emily, had her first piano recital, he missed it because of a critical seminar. When his youngest son, Michael, graduated from high school, he couldn't attend the ceremony because he had to fly to California to close a big deal. Each time, he'd apologize to Mary and the kids, promising to make it up to them. But those promises became empty as one missed occasion followed another. Mary, his devoted wife, did her best to understand and be supportive. She'd often reassure their children, "Your father loves this family very much. He's just really busy with work." But over time, even Mary began to feel the loneliness. Countless dinners with just her and the kids, family vacations that John couldn't join, and many nights she stayed up alone, waiting for him to return from work. As the children grew older, they stopped expecting their father's presence at family gatherings. Things carried on this way until Mary was diagnosed with cancer. It was a jarring wake-up call for John. He cut back on his work to care for her. But by then, Mary's time was running short. She passed away just as John turned 60. The loss shattered him. He realized he had lost countless precious moments with Mary, moments he could never get back, no matter how much money or success he had. After Mary's death, John tried to reconnect with his children. He frequently called, suggesting family gatherings and offering to visit. But Emily and Michael, now with their own lives and families, had little time for him. Emily had moved to Chicago with her husband and children, while Michael was running his own company in California. Whenever John invited them over, they were always too busy or stopped by only briefly, almost out of obligation. Their conversations became distant and formal. The closeness they once shared was gone. Now, without the demands of his career, John lived alone in the big house that had once been the center of a warm, bustling family. He'd often sit in the living room, staring at old family photos, pictures of Emily and Michael as children, of Mary smiling at the dinner table, still healthy and happy. But now, those moments were just memories. The house felt empty, too large and too quiet. John filled his time with social activities, hoping to stave off the loneliness. He joined a book club, signed up for yoga classes, and even attended charity events. But no matter where he went or what he did, the loneliness remained. Each time he returned home, the emptiness would creep back in. He missed Mary deeply and regretted all the times he could have been with his kids, but chose work instead. One winter afternoon, John decided to surprise Emily with a visit to Chicago. He thought it might be a way to reconnect, to see his daughter and grandkids. But when he arrived, the house was empty. Emily was away on a business trip, and only the housekeeper was there. She welcomed him in, but the house felt cold and impersonal, lacking the warmth of a family home. John sat in the living room, looking at pictures of Emily and the grandchildren he barely knew. The loneliness engulfed him once again. After that trip, John realized just how far he had grown from those he loved most. He tried calling Emily and Michael more often, but their responses mirrored his own from years ago, packed schedules and promises to make time later, the same kind he used to make to them when they were young. John finally understood what his wife and children must have felt, but it was too late to make amends. John returned to his large, empty house. He knew then that no amount of money or success could replace the absence of love and connection. He had spent a lifetime chasing external achievements, losing sight of what truly mattered: his family. And now, with nothing left but loneliness, he realized that the things he had lost could never be reclaimed. John's story is a profound lesson on the value of family and love. In life, no success is greater than the bonds we share and the moments we spend with our loved ones. When everything else fades away, the only thing that remains is the love and relationships we have nurtured. Dear friends, after 70, the concepts of success and happiness shift dramatically. If earlier in life we measured success by wealth, recognition, and accomplishments, now things become simpler. Success is no longer about what we achieve in the outside world, but about feeling content with who we are, valuing our life experiences, and cherishing the relationships we've built. Happiness comes from inner peace, from appreciating the little moments, and from the ability to let go of the pressures that have weighed us down throughout our lives. If you found the message in this story meaningful, please leave a comment below. In the next part of this video, let's reflect on 2 more stories. Story 1. The Weight of Life. When Joan turned 73, her life suddenly felt much heavier. Her husband, Frank, had passed away 2 years earlier after a sudden heart attack. They had been married for over 50 years, weathering life's highs and lows together. And Frank had always been Joan's rock. She thought that after Frank's passing, she'd live comfortably on their savings, enjoying her own time, connecting with friends, and engaging in social activities. But her life didn't go as she envisioned. Joan and Frank had 3 children. Their 2 eldest daughters, Sarah and Emily, were married and settled in different states. With steady jobs and families of their own, they would occasionally call to check in on their mother. Both Sarah and Emily wanted Joan to move closer to them, suggesting she could live in a small apartment or a retirement community near their families. But Joan refused, partly because she didn't want to leave the home she and Frank had built together, and partly because of one specific reason. That reason was Mark, her youngest son. At 45, Mark had never really stood on his own. In his youth, he was smart and full of promise, graduating from college with a degree in computer science. But his career never took off. He moved from one job to the next, never staying in one place for more than a year. Occasionally, he would pursue his own business ideas, but they all ended in failure within a few months. After a short-lived marriage that ended in divorce, Mark moved back in with his parents. Initially, Joan and Frank thought that Mark just needed time to get back on his feet after his marriage fell apart. But that short time stretched into over a decade. And since Frank's death, Joan realized that her role in caring for Mark had never truly ended. Mark didn't hold a steady job. The part-time, low-paying gigs he picked up here and there would last only a few weeks before he quit. Each time this happened, Joan would worry and continue to support him financially, fearing that if she didn't, Mark wouldn't be able to survive. Even though he was in his 40s, Mark felt more like an overgrown child, completely dependent on his mother. But the burden wasn't only financial. Mark's mental state took a toll on Joan as well. He was often frustrated, angry with himself, and blamed everyone and everything for his failures. He would constantly tell his mother that the world was against him, that he was undervalued at work, and that no one understood him. Joan would listen to his complaints, try to comfort him, and offer advice, but she eventually realized that nothing she said made a difference. Mark wouldn't change. He kept spiraling into a cycle of self-pity and failure. One day, Sarah called her mom. She knew Joan was under a lot of stress caring for Mark and wanted to help. "Mom," Sarah said, "you can't keep doing this. Mark is a grown man, and he needs to take responsibility for his life. You can't keep doing everything for him. This isn't good for you or for him." Joan knew Sarah was right, but it was hard to let go. "Sarah, you don't understand. If I don't help Mark, who will? He doesn't have a job or savings. I can't just abandon him. I know you're worried about him, but you also have to think about yourself. You've done more than enough. If you keep this up, you're going to wear yourself out." Joan fell silent. She'd heard this before, not just from Sarah, but also from Emily and a few close friends. Everyone told her that Mark needed to become self-reliant. But Joan always felt it was her duty to take care of him. She was his mother. After all, she couldn't just let him drown. In the weeks following her conversation with Sarah, Joan felt herself growing exhausted, physically and emotionally. She no longer had the energy to take care of herself because most of her time and effort went to Mark. She started thinking about the future for both herself and her son. How long could she keep supporting Mark? What would happen when she was no longer there to help him? One evening, over dinner with Mark, Joan decided to speak up. "Mark, I think it's time we talk about the future," she said softly. Mark looked up, his eyes clouded with familiar frustration. "The future? What future? Mom? I've tried everything. Nothing works." Joan hesitated. "I know you've tried, but you're 45 now, and I won't always be around. You need to stand on your own, find a job, and take care of yourself." Mark let out a bitter laugh. "Do you think I don't know that? I've tried, but nothing ever changes. I don't have a future." Joan's heart ached. She knew it wouldn't be easy for Mark to change after all these years. But she also knew that if she didn't address the issue, nothing would change, and Mark would never grow up. "I will always be here for you, Mark," Joan said gently. "But you need to try harder for yourself. If you don't make an effort to change, no one else can help you." Mark said nothing. Joan didn't know if her words would make a difference, but at least she'd said what needed to be said. That night, lying in bed, she felt exhausted. She knew the road ahead would be hard. Joan often thought about her neighbors, the Petersons, and couldn't help but admire them. Their son, David, was about Mark's age, but a completely different type of person. David was attentive, regularly helping his parents with repairs, errands, and doctor visits. He visited them every weekend, always bringing a bright smile and gifts. Joan quietly observed the Petersons and felt a twinge of envy. She wondered if her love and overprotection had hindered Mark's ability to grow and become independent. Joan remembered her younger days, when she and Frank faced struggles together, built a family, and raised their children. They worked hard, with no one to lean on but each other. Yet they stood on their own and created a loving home. Joan never considered relying on anyone, even when life got tough. But why couldn't Mark do the same? On long, restless nights, Joan often found herself asking, if I had done things differently, would it have changed anything? If I hadn't protected Mark so much, would he have been able to stand on his own like David? There were no clear answers, but those questions left Joan feeling empty and somewhat regretful. Old age should have been a time to let go, to find peace after years of hard work. But for Joan, she realized that the burden of motherhood never truly ended. She constantly faced the fear that when she was gone, who would take care of Mark? Instead of feeling relief, she carried a heavy heart, as if she had not completed her role as a mother. The sense of helplessness regarding her son's future made her golden years far from the peaceful time she had once hoped for. Story 2. The loneliness of life's end. Peter was once a driven and charismatic man. He had a great job at a major construction company and was respected by colleagues and superiors alike. On the outside, it looked like he had it all: a beautiful family, a loving wife named Susan, and 2 children, Emma and James. Life seemed perfect, but beneath the surface, Peter was slowly becoming a distant husband and father. As Peter's career advanced, he began spending less time with his family. Skipping family dinners became the norm, and gradually, he prioritized client meetings and fancy parties over meals with his wife and kids. Susan often tried to talk to him, but Peter would just brush it off, insisting that everything he was doing was for their family's future. Susan believed him until one day, she discovered that Peter was having an affair. Peter had been cheating. It started as casual encounters with a young colleague at work, but soon those secret meetings became a habit. Peter felt satisfied with this new lifestyle, a successful career on one hand, and a thrill-seeking romance on the other. He ignored Susan's concerns and failed to notice the growing emotional gap between him and his children. When Susan found out, she was devastated. She cried a lot but still tried to save their marriage. She confronted Peter, hoping he would come back to his family. However, Peter, wrapped up in his own pride, didn't see the value of his family. He showed no remorse, offered no apologies, and even blamed Susan for interfering too much in his personal life. "I haven't done anything wrong," Peter would say. "I deserve a little freedom after working so hard for so many years." The marriage fell apart. Susan couldn't bear it any longer. She decided to leave, taking Emma and James with her to start a new life. At first, Peter didn't care. He thought he could continue enjoying his newfound freedom without the burden of family responsibilities. But as the house grew quiet and empty, he started to feel the emptiness. No more laughter from his wife and kids. No more warm family meals. He lived in a cold, lifeless house filled with memories of what was once his greatest joy. Now nothing but a source of regret. As the years went by, loneliness began to take over Peter's life. His affair gradually lost its excitement, and the woman he had been involved with left him for someone else. His career also started to slow down, and the reality of his losses hit him hard. With no one by his side, Peter realized that his own betrayal and indifference had driven his family away. One winter day, Peter decided to visit Susan. It had been years since she and the kids left. He stood outside the small house where Susan now lived with Emma and James. The cold wind bit at his face as he stood there, more nervous than he had ever been, not because of work or any other stress, but out of fear of how his family would react. Susan opened the door, but her eyes were no longer warm and familiar. She looked at Peter, not saying a word, in a low voice. He said, "Susan, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I didn't appreciate you and the kids. I came to apologize and ask for your forgiveness." Peter paused, hoping for even the slightest sign that she might forgive him. But Susan just stood there, her gaze cold and tired. "It's too late, Peter," she replied quietly. "You had your chance. The kids and I have learned to live without you. We can't go back." And with that, she gently closed the door, leaving Peter standing in the freezing cold, alone. At that moment, Peter realized that everything he had lost was gone for good. He had lost his wife, his children, and the family life he once took for granted. Loneliness was now his only companion. Every effort he made to reconnect with Emma and James was met with rejection. They didn't want to see him anymore. They no longer considered him their father. His betrayal had left a wound that time could not heal. Now, in his old age, Peter lives alone in a small apartment. The only sounds are the ticking of the clock and the dim light reflecting off old photographs. There's no one by his side, no laughter, no calls of dad. He learned too late that family was what really mattered. But by the time he realized it, it was far too late. People often take the most precious things in life for granted. The presence of family, loved ones, and close relationships are sometimes seen as a given. Many get caught up in their busy lives, chasing success, careers, or fleeting pleasures, and forget that the truly important things are right beside them. It's only when they lose those things, when everything slips out of reach, that they understand how much those moments of real happiness and peace meant. By then, regret and apologies don't change anything. The emptiness and loneliness are the results of neglecting and overlooking what we once held dear. Damaged relationships aren't easily repaired, and by the time we finally grasp the importance of family and love, it's often too late to go back. This story serves as a deep lesson about the importance of valuing and nurturing what's precious while you still can. As we conclude this story, dear friends, Life After 70 invites us to view the world through a new lens, one of deeper reflection and refined appreciation. The things we once held as paramount, like careers or fame, begin to fade, making way for what truly matters: health, love, and inner peace. But perhaps the most profound realization we come to is the responsibility we owe to ourselves. Gone are the days when we could afford to drift aimlessly, letting life carry us wherever it pleased. At this stage, opportunities to rewrite mistakes or waste precious moments become rare. And instead, it is a time to cherish ourselves fully, from simple joys to treasured relationships. Life, whether short or long, is a precious gift when we embrace self-love and mindful living. Don't let indifference or the pursuit of fleeting distractions dim the beauty of the present. Having navigated losses and endured life's trials, we come to understand deeply that living responsibly, protecting what we have, and honoring our journey are the only paths to truly experiencing life's fullness. So, slow down. Let your heart hear the whispers of the present moment. Allow life to unfold gently, filled with meaning and grace. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you the most in today's video? Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories and insights to inspire your journey. Together, let's continue exploring the richness of life.